Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the 2024 TMB Spirit of Troy Streamathon, and we've got a treat for you today. I'm sitting down in the practice courts here in the Galen Center, and we're interviewing the greatest coach in the history of women's athletics here at USC, Lindsay Gottlieb. Everyone clap for Lindsay Gottlieb at home. Yay. Thanks for sitting down with me,
I don't know
Lindsay.
if I can claim that title, but I appreciate it. Definitely speaking on behalf of the greatest band in the land. That goes without saying.
Listen, if we can give ourselves the title, I can give you the title of greatest
Sounds
coach
great.
ever. So, but thank you for sitting down with me. It's an absolute treat to get to sit with you. We were talking before we got started in this, and you mentioned the clarinet.
Yes.
And you played the clarinet. Tell me about this. Nobody knows this, so I want to hear all about clarinet.
Yes, we were saying how I get asked a lot of the same questions, but no one's ever asked me about my musical beginnings. So when I was a kid, I had amazing parents who obviously wanted to expose us to a lot of things. So in our school, we got to choose an instrument. I chose clarinet, and they allowed me to get clarinet lessons.
Okay.
So like private lessons. I don't know. My children aren't old enough, but I bet that's not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So the clarinet teacher would come to the house, and I was definitely in grade school, so maybe 10.
Sure, sounds about right.
And my parents weren't home, and he would come over, and how long are lessons? 45 minutes, an hour?
At that age, yeah, about then. Yeah.
This is how my lessons went. The guy really liked me, I liked him. We talked about basketball, the Knicks, for at least 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay,
He was
sounds good.
fascinated that like a 10-year-old girl was really into Knicks, so we talked about the Knicks for like 20 to 30 minutes.
That's awesome.
I would play for a maximum of 10 to 15 minutes, and then I'd say, is it almost 4? My brother has a baseball game. I really want to go to the baseball game. And he'd say, okay, and I would leave.
And that's
so
it.
I think my parents were paying for an hour-long lesson. I like to say it kick-started my career because we talked hoops for a while.
Sure.
I did the playing for 10 to 15 minutes, and I was out the door to watch my brother's baseball game. So that was my musical.
And that's it.
That's
How long did you do that for?
This nice guy probably fleeced my parents for about a year, and then they were like, "You're not getting any better at clarinet." I'm like, "Yeah, that's because I'm playing for 10 minutes a lesson."
Got it.
And so it was
that's
probably
fun.
about a year, but it was fun. I talked hoops, I went to baseball, and I played clarinet for about 10 minutes.
Oh, awesome, excellent.
It was not my strength.
No?
No.
Mine either.
I enjoyed it, but I'm yes.
Clarinet was my first instrument.
Okay.
And then I switched to trumpet, French horn, and then I do a lot of drums now. So I did
Wow.
that musical
Yes.
goofball path. But people always ask me, why music? Why was I drawn to it? Because
Yep.
when I was a kid, I played baseball. I was on the wrestling team in junior high. I did all those things. But then marching band got its claws in me. So for you, what was it about basketball that grabbed you? Or did you do other sports when you were younger?
I did every sport. I think I just gravitated really to playing sports, the competition, the skill, watching sports. It really was a passion of mine. I played baseball, soccer, basketball. I played a little football when I was little. Loved talking about sports. I don't know. I think my family was into it, but I wasn't pressured in any way. I just think it was my natural passion. It's really fun. I'm sure you feel the same way. It's really fun when you get to take that passion and turn it into your career, your livelihood. I definitely feel like I get to come to work every day and still feel like I can't believe I get paid to do the thing that I've loved since I was 4 years old.
Yeah, and so of all the sports, like I imagine, like you're probably really good at them all, I bet. So why that one? Why was it
good
basketball
question.
that's the one you hung on to?
So I definitely played all sports, and I would say, even to these high-level basketball players, I would encourage parents to let your kids like cross-train, try different things. It's okay to play a sport and you're not the best. But ultimately, I think in my town, soccer was probably the biggest sport for girls, but there was a group of us, maybe 3 or 4 who were really into basketball, and it's all about opportunity, I think. There was a gentleman in our town who had started a club program and gave us the opportunity to play a little bit more seriously. Then you start to see high-level competition. We would go, I'm from a suburb of New York City. We'd go into New York City and play tournaments there, and it kept getting cooler and cooler, right? The opportunity. Then you start seeing college. We would go watch high school games when I was in grade school, but then you start seeing college teams on TV, and I think I saw what was out there. So I loved all sports, but basketball became the passion, I think, because I saw the opportunities and had people to look up to, and I liked all sports, but I love basketball. To me, it's so artistic, it's creative, there's a game planning aspect to it, there's a creativity. And so I think even though I knew I wasn't going to be a professional, like I wasn't that good, I played in college, but there was something about the sport and the impact on others in terms of the coaching that I felt like, okay, this is what I want to do with my life.
That's great. And basketball, they call march, the dance, right?
Yes.
And it's very choreographed.
Yes.
And for me, it took me a long time because I played basketball. I'd shoot hoops with my brother and my dad. We did a lot of around the world, a lot of lightning.
Yep.
But you put me in 3-on-3. It's a bad scene. I can't help but foul everybody and get myself in trouble. But when looking at the game and just the choreography, it really to me reminds me of ballet. The way you're moving people around and you're really making these moves on the team. So now if we can get into some X's and O's, like what are some of the things going through your head when you're making some of those halftime adjustments in a game?
Well, you know, the 10,000 hours rule, right? Like you really don't become an expert in something until you spend 10,000 hours. For me, watching film completely changed my perspective on the game. And it wasn't, you know, I started coaching when I was 21, and that's when you really dig into film, and you really can see the game from a you know, a bird's eye view, and the patterns and the movements, and it is artistry, it is spacing, it is movement. So I would say, and even, you know, people ask about my time in the NBA, the ability to just watch and learn a different level of the game, but it's still the same game, how they space the floor, how do they utilize skill sets. So going into the games, we scout ourselves, like we know what our strengths and weaknesses are and what we're trying to accomplish, and you really learn the opponent, like what they're trying to do. And I find typically in women's college basketball that if a team has a plan A, if you really can limit or take away plan A, oftentimes plan B and C aren't good enough to beat you. So I like to say to our own players, I'm trying to give you the answers before you take the exam in terms of what we're going to face, what we're trying to take away. So at halftime, we already have a game plan. We already have a vision of kind of what's supposed to happen. So then when you're making adjustments, you're like, okay, we're supposed to be forcing them out into the middle of the floor and they're getting to the middle of the floor. How do we adjust that? Or this matchup is really working well for us. How can we exploit that more? So usually by halftime of a game, you already have a plan, and it's whether or not the plan is going well enough and you want to continue with that. And every once in a while you have to scrap the plan and say, we thought it was going to be this and it's something else. But usually the halftime adjustments are tweaking the patterns and stuff that you already know you're trying to get to, or taking your game plan and trying to do it a little bit better.
Has there ever been a play, I'll call it the dream play. For me in music, sometimes there's those dream charts, like I want to play this music and I have to crack the code on how to arrange it right. Has there been some play or some maneuver that you knew would work and it just wasn't clicking, and then finally it locked in and a team just rocked it and nailed it? Have you ever had that experience?
Totally. I mean, what I always tell our players is, like, the best thing for me is when we give them a game plan, they understand the game plan, but then as a team and a unit, they almost like transcend the game plan. Like they know it, but they're not thinking about it, so it just happens. So for me, actually, some of the most beautiful basketball is unchoreographed specifically. Like, we obviously have actions, we have sets, but the way I like to play is if it's not slowed down in a specific pattern, it's playing in flow. When they start to make reads out of the things you've worked on, but it's not specific, that's when I think it's really beautiful. But I would say, going back to your answer, it was actually a defensive game plan. It's going all the way back to my third year as a head coach when I was at Santa Barbara. My first year we won, you know, the tournament. We won the Big West and the Big West tournament. Second year we struggled a little bit, so the third year was like really important to get back on top. And we devised a game plan where we were playing Long Beach State, and they had a kind of a star player, and I think everybody else thought, try to shut down the star player. But I really studied some analytics that said the star player is going to do her thing. It's when the other players score or don't score actually dictates whether they win or lose. So we devised a game plan that, I know this sounds crazy, but would shut down everyone else and let that one kid kind of do her thing. I thought we could defend her better than most people could. And this game plan worked so beautifully because we had a guard and a post player who could manage the star player, and we really shut down everyone else, and we won a game that we weren't supposed to win. And that to me was one of the times where a game plan really just manifested in a way that was cool. And it was really about the game plan, because I wouldn't say, I mean, obviously we were a talented team, but it wasn't just about talent. It was about kind of outsmarting the other team.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yep.
I want to talk about mentorship.
Yes.
Who is someone in your past that maybe in all the interviews, all the chats, that maybe helped put you on your path that maybe you don't get to talk about a lot?
So there's a woman named Joanne Boyle. When I was a senior in college, I knew that I wanted to coach. So, you know, I went to Brown. All my Ivy League classmates are like setting up internships or doing job interviews or getting hired in, you know, December. And I'm like, I want to coach. What do I do? And so I started reaching out to coaches that I knew and kind of telling them what my goals were. Well, my best friend from high school was a great player at Duke University. So I went down to visit her, and her assistant coach, this woman Joanne, who I knew a little bit when she was recruiting my friend, sat down with me and talked with me for an hour. We talked philosophically, why do you want to coach? And I was telling her, I asked her what she loved about coaching. Well, fast forward 3 years later, I was in coaching, and she got her first head coaching job and hired me as her top assistant. I was 24 years old. I had to get a note from the athletic director to be able to rent a car when I went out recruiting because I wasn't 25. And she entrusted me. It wasn't like she was a boss and I was the assistant and she said, okay, you do A, B, and C. She said, let's do this together and build a program. And I think about that now, a woman lifting up another young, female to say, to empower me to do things, to try things. And then she ultimately we were at the University of Richmond, she went and got the head job at Cal, brought me with her, and that opened up a whole lot of other doors. And then I got my first head coaching job from there. So here was someone who continually empowered me. She let me run the offense or run the defense or think of this crazy idea and let me see if I can make it work. And so she absolutely put me in positions to succeed. And then when she left Cal and I went back as the head coach and we went to the Final Four 2 years later, she came to the Final Four. It was her team. She had recruited that team, and I felt like I was just shepherding them to where we needed to go. And so her mentorship and her belief, I wouldn't be in the position I am today if not for her.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
What does mentorship mean to you? You've got these firecracker students
Yes.
on your team, and we got a glimpse of it. With all the March Madness hullabaloo, we get all these footage in the locker room. But obviously, that's 10 minutes out of
for sure
these days and days.
Yes.
So what does that look like for you? What does that mean to you to see these women succeeding, being drafted?
It's unreal.
It's crazy. It's
unreal.
so cool.
And we tell people all the time, we have 35 games a year, but we're a team 365 days a year. So there's a lot that people don't see. And I think, quite honestly, some of those other days are the most important days. We talked about it. I love basketball. I love the X's and O's. I could nerd out and talk about it all day. But the most important thing we do is impact the lives of, 18 to 23-year-old women. And this is a time in which they really become who they want to be ultimately. Not that there's not growth after 23, but doors are open. And we have a platform through basketball and through the education here at USC to have a huge impact on their lives. And that's the best part. It's the conversations with a freshman who might be struggling. It's the great conversations with seniors who are about to go into their life and have doors open. All of it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
We had the draft the other night, and 2 of our seniors were drafted, and you're jumping up and down wildly. That's a cool moment. But Kayla Padilla got a job in the 2 passions that she has. She's interested in finance and music, and she got a job as a finance person in the music industry. We don't jump up and down and celebrate, but that's just as meaningful too.
Of course.
And the successes that you see with them throughout their life are really, really the best part of it. So I take that part really seriously, that we are probably with them more than their parents, more than the professors, more than anyone else in their lives during this time in college. So yes, to be kind of what they need us to be more than just a coach is really important.
That's excellent. What's a former student of yours that has a real interesting job outside of basketball that just comes to mind?
Yep. There was a young woman that I coached at Cal, Berkeley, when I was a head coach there, who from the time I was recruiting her as a 16-year-old, she just talked about Disney. I love Disney. I take trips to Disney. I love Disney movies. And so that was always an ultimate goal. When she left Cal, she worked at a startup in the solar homes, that, not having to do with Disney, but she really built up her work experience. She was super bright and ultimately got a job, tried so many different times and ultimately got a job at Pixar.
Nice.
So how cool. And I saw her name on the credits. Her first film was Soul.
No way.
Which is actually
great.
A musical movie, which is incredible. The pride I have in that and seeing someone, spend a lot of time and grind to get to their dream job is it's really meaningful. So she's got a super cool job working at Pixar and behind the scenes on a bunch of cool movies.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool. When I'm watching you on the court, the chemistry with you and Beth is really cool. Can you tell me, what's the start of that relationship? How'd you 2 get connected? And then I want to hear more about that, the 2 of you.
So you're talking about Coach B, Beth Burns, our associate head coach. We'd call it, she's just a legend in our game. So I first met her when I was an assistant at Cal, and she was the head coach at San Diego State, and we interacted with a lot of other coaches just on the recruiting trail. And Coach B was always someone you want to sit next to in recruiting, because you're going to get a lot of knowledge. You're going to get a lot of good stories. You're going to be entertained. Just someone who was always really willing to help young coaches and just offer knowledge. So that was I generally knew her. Then she had a year where she was after San Diego State before she moved on to other work experiences, and I flew her up to Cal to teach me a particular defense, a 1-3-1. And that was really meaningful. We definitely won games using that 1-3-1. So I was like, here's someone, again, now in a more formal way can offer knowledge. And then when she was working at Louisville, I tried to hire her when I had an opening at Cal. She wasn't ready to go. And then when I had the opening here, I just felt like it was a really unique time. I said, we're trying to build USC into the top program in the country. I could use your help. I could use what you bring. I was also pregnant and knew I was going into a season where I was going to have to take some time off. So someone who had been a head coach and could clearly run an operation while I was out was important to me. So getting her here was a huge part, I think, in our success. And then we really have complementary styles. Like her mind goes to defense. My mind likes to focus on offense first.
That's great.
She is personality-wise one way and I'm another way, and I think it plays well with the team in that sense. But she's just all about growing this program. She's a winner, and it's really been an absolute thrill for me to be able to coach with her. But also it's sent our program on a trajectory, I think, that we all wanted to get to, but it's happened faster than maybe
awesome.
We all imagined. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you've got the 2 kiddos.
I do.
How old are they? What are they?
We do, yeah. My husband Patrick and I have Jordan, who's turning 7 next month.
Wow.
And Reese, who just turned 18 months.
No way.
Yes.
How's that going?
It's great.
I got 3 of them.
Okay, so you know it's like your home is a zoo, basically.
The home is a zoo.
Yes.
The 3rd one was born, check this out, he was born New Year's Eve.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm at the Holiday Bowl with the football team.
Oh,
so
my
like we
goodness.
do an event and then I texting
Yes.
my wife, she's texting Brett, hey, everything's okay, tell him it's okay, and it's just high stress. And then he showed up right after the game.
So was he early? Like you weren't expecting?
He was early.
Okay.
He was early, but we thought based on the others, he could have showed up while I was in San Diego.
That's
but
crazy.
It all worked out. But
Yes.
with the travel, and I know we're kind of in the same
Yes.
boat. You're traveling with the team. You're doing what
Yes.
you're doing. How do you balance? Now I'm talking kid shop.
For sure.
How do you balance the kid stuff and still be mom and still be this humongous head coach?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the word for me isn't work-life balance, it's work-life integration.
Okay.
And I'm fortunate that my conversations, in coming to USC, with the administration, I was very transparent up front saying, hey, I want to be the best coach in the country, but I want to do it my unique way, which involves balancing children, family. I have an incredible team around us. Obviously, my husband, Patrick's super flexible, but we also have a full-time nanny and other helpers and people. And so motherhood looks a certain way for me. I try to not be judgmental in any way. Like, I need help doing it. We have, wonderful people. I have a flexible team and organization that allows me to bring the kids around. And I feel like when I was pregnant with Jordan, our first child, I literally said to the team, I don't intend to change who I am as a coach. I'm very hands-on. I want the players to come in. I said, but I might now have a kiddo around, and it might look a little bit different. And so I've just been able to adapt and adjust, but also really grateful for the people I work with to allow me to do it my way, and sometimes have the kids around, and sometimes change times of things, but also my family allows me to do this job at a high level and figure out how to kind of put it all together in a crazy puzzle piece.
Do they like basketball?
They love basketball, and I didn't push it on them. Like, it was funny for Jordan at some point, like it clicked.
Yeah.
He was always kind of around practice, but then at some point it clicked where he's like, oh my gosh, I can shoot on the side when they're talking, or he now really likes to watch games. He can name, tons of players in the Pac-12. He can name NBA players. One kind of fun story is, he was 2 to 4 when we were in Cleveland with the Cavs.
Okay.
So that was kind of all he knew, although, he was a baby at Cal. But one time, soon after we had moved to LA, we were driving. You get the best conversations in the car, right? Like, that's when the kids will talk to you.
Yep.
And we were driving, and he just sort of said, kind of apropos of nothing, he said, Mommy, you know what's really interesting? I said, what's really interesting? He said, in Cleveland, boys play basketball, and in LA, girls play basketball.
Nice.
And I said, actually, boys and girls play in both places. You just saw it here, saw it, there. And it's been neat to see it through his eyes. He's like, when you're done coaching USC, can you coach the Warriors? Like, he just believes I can coach anywhere, right?
That's
which is awesome.
That's so cool.
He thinks, our players are just as cool as, Darius Garland or Steph Curry. It's all kind of one thing to him, which is really neat, which is how they should grow up. So he's into it. And then Reese, who's 18 months, you never know how they're going to take to the games, but she cheers like crazy at the games.
That's
She
awesome.
loves it. She says SC. I tell people her first 2 words other than mama were SC and Juju. So I was like, okay, those are some good words to know.
Those are the best words
Those
to
are pretty
have.
good words.
That's
yes.
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, my kiddos are pretty into they're pretty into SC,
Yes.
but they were against music for a minute.
Okay.
I think because music is what takes dad away, right? But my
totally.
daughter, now she's in piano and she's just
Loves it.
She loves it.
Okay,
she's
good.
geeking out about it.
That's
the
great.
boy though, he likes baseball and he likes throwing a basketball around.
Awesome.
But he's very low, so he has a hard time.
Yeah. Well, we can lower the baskets and get them to learn how to shoot, and then the baskets can get higher. But I think there's a cool thing about being around a college campus, right? Like
Yep.
Jordan loves the band. The whole pageantry of football is cool. They can go watch, a women's soccer game. Like it's neat to kind of expose them to everything. And as they get older, the arts around USC. So I'm really into just the cultural diversity of a college campus, and SC is incredible in that way.
Yeah. So in terms of culture, I read somewhere you spent some time in Australia.
I did.
So Australia was the first country I visited.
Okay.
Outside of the U.S. and I've been trying to go back, and I want to go back.
It's an amazing place.
It was super cool. But where were you? I want to hear about that. What was that trip?
So I played basketball in the Ivy League. As I mentioned, I wasn't quite as good as these players, but which means in the Ivy League you're not on athletic scholarship, so you have a little bit more flexibility, like do some stuff, right?
Okay.
And my mom passed away my sophomore year of college, and so I just kind of went through a time of like, I knew I loved basketball and I knew I wanted to come back and play basketball, but I felt like I needed this life experience to go travel, and so I went to Australia. And originally I was going to go for 1 semester abroad. Turns out that the particular place I was at had a scholarship for the second semester based only on one thing, whoever had the highest GPA from the first semester. So I'm like, okay, I could go for free for the second semester or pay the Brown tuition if I just study a little and, maybe do a little bit more work than these other study abroad students. So I ended up going for a full year, the second year paid for, which was cool. So I was living in Sydney.
Yeah.
I was studying in Sydney, but I traveled pretty much everywhere in the entire country except I didn't get to Perth, which is all the way on the other side of the country. But I went to Tasmania, and I went up the coast to Cairns, which is the Great Barrier Reef, and I went to the center of the country, and I went to Melbourne. I really pretty much went everywhere, so I had an incredible experience in Australia.
Did you bring the accent back with you after a year?
I did not. I did not. I had a lot of good Australian friends that I could keep in touch with, but I couldn't pick up the accent as cool as that would have been.
I think I was only there a month, and I think some of it
rubbed
crept
off.
back with me.
Yes, there's some words every now and again that I'm like, oh, that's how the Aussies
But now
say it.
now the kids are watching this. What's the show? Bluey.
Oh yes.
Your kids watch it?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great show.
And so they start picking up, and then I'm trying to joke around with them and horse around.
For
with
sure,
them.
and try to use the Australian accent.
So tell us about this. So this March Madness run we just had.
Yes.
You're traveling with the band. What was that like? Right
So
on
cool.
the airplane with them.
The energy with the band, it always accentuates anything we're doing. Absolutely love the band. So the plane, going to the tournament games is bigger. To have the band sitting with us is just, it's such a treat for us. Meeting some of the individual students, they were so genuine with, hey, we've loved this season, we love women's basketball, thank you for including us on this run. They were just great people, but the energy around it was unbelievable. The band send-offs at the Pac-12 tournament in Vegas, we had that little spot where we'd go, and just to be there on the first day, the second day, and the last day of the championship day, we felt really bonded, hey, we're still here, let's do this one more time. It was unbelievable. Obviously hearing the songs play, being part of it was great. And then bringing that energy to our building for the first and second rounds, but also to Portland for the Sweet 16 was really special.
And how does that energy, how do you take that and then just bottle that up and translate it to the court? What does that do for you getting out
Well,
there?
I think it's really meaningful to the players, right? Especially in a women's sport. We felt a lot of support this year, but when you're heading into a game, to know that you have the school with you, that the band, which is a representative of I think, really USC, hey, you guys have our back, it means something. The band send-off is special. We feel it. You hear Conquest, you hear the different songs played, and it gives you that extra push of importance and feeling special and feeling motivated going into the game. I mean, I'm a little bit sappy, but I tear up almost every single time, walking in, being I'm the head coach of USC women's basketball with all the great history, and I get to walk and high five the band and hear the band's music. it's just a really special thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I don't want to assume anything, but with your time in the Cavs and then collegiate sports, you're not getting that in the NBA, right? That same kind of feeling.
No.
That electricity from the student body, obviously.
Yeah, there's no student body. I mean, the NBA is super cool in a lot of different ways, and I would often go to different arenas and be like, wow, these people show up to see these players, or they show up for the city, and it's a neat thing. But there's nothing like the pageantry of college sports. And in fact, it's interesting when you see it through the eyes of someone who's not from America. Like we have an au pair who is not American, and she actually came with us from Cleveland to here. So like she saw the pro sports thing, and I was like, no, college is like different. And she was like, oh my gosh, those are like college students, the cheerleaders and the band. I was like, yes, it's this whole thing. I was like, pretty much everyone in the stadium is a student or someone who went here, like an alumni or part of the extended Trojan family. Like, just see it through someone else's eyes of just how cool that whole deal is pretty unbelievable.
What's one Lindsay Gottlieb fun fact that people don't know?
I can juggle.
No way.
I'm really good at juggling.
How good? On a scale of 1 to
so
I'm going to put you in a halftime show level of juggling.
I would put myself against other like Division I coaches in a halftime show, but not against like professional jugglers. I used to know like more tricks and stuff when I practiced it, but I can break out juggling and juggling basketballs, and like my kids love it and go crazy. So as long as the kids think it's cool, like my daughter like cracks up, and she's 18 months. I've got a juggling skill.
No way.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah. I cannot juggle for the life of me.
So maybe the next time we chat, I'll break it out.
Next time. Well, Lindsay, I want to thank you. I want to be mindful of your time. Thank you for sitting down for us
Thanks
for a little
bit
today.
Me.
Of course. And so folks out there, come to USC women's basketball games.
Yes, and support the band. Support the band. Come to USC women's basketball games. We feel like we're a rocket ship just taking off, the support really matters to us. It matters to our women, and I think you can see it's taking off nationally. But we want Galen Center to be the epicenter of women's basketball, for the foreseeable future.
One more question.
Yes.
Was your first day here May 10th, 21?
Was that the first official day? It was definitely May 2021. I should know the exact date. But
on the internet it said May 10th.
There you go, May 10th.
That's my birthday. So
yes.
You're the best birthday present we've ever had at USC.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You,
now
Lindsay.
I'll never forget that date. That'll be locked in. It's coming up here.
All right. Well, I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
With us. Thank you all, and fight on, everybody.
Fight on.
I'm Jake Vogel, and this is the Streamathon.